Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I recently came across this article that was posted on the Heir's Property Preservation's Facebook page. I thought it was fitting for me to do a review of this article and give my thoughts on the subject dealing with Heir's property. So here's the article. I'm going to click on the link. The title of the article is Brothers Say Their Land Was Stolen. For 9 years, they have fought to get it back. So I'm going to review this article and give my thoughts on the matter. Let's get into the video. Thanks for watching. So as I said, the brothers say their land was stolen for 9 years. They fought to get it back. This is an interesting article really showing that even when you hire lawyers and try to do what's right in accordance with the law, things don't always work out. As well as I talked about it before in another reaction video about individuals preying on Heir property. And it's become more prevalent now as you know, there isn't any more land being made, and so basically this is a land grab. People realize that owning property is the way to generating wealth. So they're dealing with family and others who are not heirs of property or heirs of property. Really brings out the bad as well as the good in people, but it is a legal fight to preserve and protect Heir property if you're heirs, owners of property. So these brothers basically are telling a story and showing that for 9 years they've been doing the best they can in a legal fight to preserve and protect the property as well as acquire their land. Okay, so reading the article here, starts off that Lorenzo Tolbert, 75, hopped in his car one afternoon to take a drive around Marion Junction, the rural town in Dallas County where he was born and raised. He and his brothers had some family property about 10 miles away from their home that they hadn't checked on in a while, so he figured he would head in that direction. It was 17 acres of growing wildflowers, weeds, and trees. Their cousin Jessie Gardner used to live there, but shortly after she died at 102 years old, the house that had once stood on the property burned down. What could possibly be happening over there now? Tolbert remembers thinking. When he arrived, the land was not untouched as he expected. Instead, a sign that read "for sale" stuck out of the grass. He called his two younger brothers to inquire whether they were trying to sell the property without his knowledge. They say no. That was 9 years ago. Now, again, this really touches on what I said in my video, me exploring the Heir property. If you've seen that video, you know what I'm talking about. Part 3 of that series. If not, I'll leave a link to the description below for you to check out that video. But as I said before, if you own property or you are heirs of property where your family owns property, go check on your property just like you will check on your family members. It is part of your responsibility, whether you know it or not, or you believe it or not, to go check on your property and just not let it fall by the wayside because you think that whoever's living on the property is taking care of it, or whoever's supposed to be managing the property is taking care of it. Ask questions. If it's well within your right, if you know for a fact that you're heir to property, go take care of your business. Continue on November 25th, 2013, Lorenzo and Tony Tolbert filed a complaint with the Circuit Court of Dallas County asking for an injunction to stop the sale of the 17 acres on County Road 29. According to the Tolberts, the court did not grant them a hearing, and the case was dismissed. Several months later, the Tolbert brothers filed a civil lawsuit against Rodney Harrison, his mother Gloria Harrison, and other parties. The parties remain open, and their next court date is set for November 16th. The case remains open, and their next court date is set for November 16th. John Pilcher, an attorney in Selma, representing the Harrisons, did not respond to the Montgomery Advertiser request for comments. Okay, so I guess it's the newspaper asking for response. Anyways, the land in question originally belonged to Nora Harrell, great-grandmother of the Tolbert brothers. She died intestate without a will, and in turn her death would open up a world of problems for her family, the land became heir property, jointly owned by her descendants. They never probated. We should have, but we didn't have. We didn't have nobody that was smart enough to do that in the family. That's just why we're going through this now, Lorenzo Tober said. This is huge, especially the part where he says that they didn't have nobody smart enough in the family to do that, to understand that probate was required, was necessary by law to clear up the estate of their great-great-grandmother. Right? She died intestate, so that means that she died without a will, meaning that her descendants, right, inherit the property, her children and her grandchildren, if they were living, inherit the property. If they died before her, then it'll pass on to the grandchildren, so forth, so forth, so forth. But needless to say, this is a prime example when I talk about my experience in dealing with heir property. That members of my family, on my grandmother's side, my grandfather's side, and everybody else who purchased this property in the late 1800s, right, had multiple owners. And then when they all died, it got passed down to their heirs or descendants because they didn't have a will and they never probated it. And it was evident by the letter that was written from the law firm out of Columbia to members of my family, to my uncle, my aunt, addressing that there was no probate. Here's the issue. There's now heirs property. You need to clear the title. And how you do that is bring forward a quadrilateral action lawsuit telling everybody to come forward and lay claims to the property. Right? But they didn't know how to do it. They didn't know that was necessary. Again, paying attention, asking questions. They didn't have somebody that was smart enough to do so. But here I am, right, putting forth the time, energy, and effort to help my family clear title to the property, to resolve this issue, to protect the property. And not just me, members of my family. An aunt before me, she's now deceased, but in 2011, 2012, she took on that fight. Because her brother and sister were being sued by individuals who laid claim to this property, but come to find out, they're not heirs to property. Well, at least not heirs to Washington James and Toby Cox. So I wasn't the first one. But here I am taking the blunt of the blame, being accused of all this, right? Nonetheless, let's move on. Historically, heir property is a primary cause of land loss amongst black families. True. And a major factor contributing to poverty in the Black Belt. According to the Alabama Probate Code, a will must be probated within 5 years after the death of the owner of the estate. When this isn't done, or there is no will, ownership of property is divided among surviving heirs in order of closest relation. From there, ownership can be fragmented, even passing generation. So basically, it's saying that the first generation or second generation or third generation, those that are living, right, will receive ownership of that property, a certain percentage. But as time goes on, it'll get broken down even further and further and further and further until like you can start out owning 25%, but then you got to share that 25% with other people out, and sooner or later that 25% is down to 5%. Often only one or a handful of heirs remain on the land, paying taxes and maintaining property. Yet these co-owners had no more legal claim to the land than those living several states away, according to Auburn University Rural Sociology study. And this is very true. There's individuals today in my family and others that think that because they live on the land or they've been involved in the management of the property or whatever the case may be, that they have more right than somebody else, which is not true. Even paying taxes. I pay the taxes for 1 year, me and my mother. It doesn't give us more of a right than somebody else, but still at the same time, it's heir property. And those individuals who live outside the state, even if they never touch foot on the property, if they never live on the property, if they can trace their lineage back to the original owners, they are heirs of property and can nobody take away from them. in this case, Lorenzo Tolbert said he had been taking care of the land and paying property taxes since moving back to Marion Junction in 1988 to care for his mother, Vendetta Harrell. Before then, she tended to the property and had received various offers from local farmers to purchase the land she declined to sell. According to deeds on record, Gloria Harrison conveyed a quick claim deed to herself, including 17 acres, on March 20th, 1999. She and Benjamin Harrell claimed the ownership of the property through familial relation, and Harrell and Harrison deeded the property to her son, Rodney Harrison, in 2008, according to a warranty deed. In 2009, well-known local farmer Douglas Kogel entered into a contract with the Harrisons to purchase 38 acres of property, including the disputed 17 acres. His family owns all of the real estate surrounding those 38 acres. My attorneys determined that the sellers could not convey good title to said real property. Kogel said in an affidavit, I did not acquire any legal or equitable interest in said real property. In 2012, Kogel entered into another contract with Rodney Harrison to purchase 19 acres of land in the same area. Once again, Kogel said his attorney determined that it was questionable whether Mr. Harrison could convey good title to this parcel of real property. The Tolbert brothers said they had no idea this was happening at the time. It wasn't until the day Lorenzo Tolbert drove past the for sale sign they thought to raise the question about the land. That week, Tony Tolbert says he called the number listed on the sign and spoke with a Demopolis real estate agent who said Gloria Harrison, a woman from New Jersey, was selling a plot of land and a farmer in town was interested in purchasing it. Now, after 9 years of back and forth, subpoenas, motions to dismiss, and court hearings, not much has changed. The Tolbert brothers have enlisted services of several different attorneys over the years, and they have estimated that they have spent around $27,000. For whatever reason, we have issues with attorneys doing what they're supposed to do when it comes to defendants filing motions and responding in a timely manner. Tony Tolbert said it's really a simple case. If we can get in an attorney to just fight the case, the land has been our family for over 100 and some years. Lorenzo is approaching his, did you say his name? Okay, Lorenzo is approaching his 76th birthday, and he says he feels an obligation to his younger brothers, Tony Tolbert and Barry Harrell, to stay in Marion Junction and fight for what they feel rightfully belongs to them. It's one of those things you don't know how long you get, he said. Lorenzo and Barry now live together in the home they grew up in, a few miles away from the disputed land. That's Heir property too. Wow. That's pretty big. Pretty interesting that individuals feel the need to keep somebody out of their inheritance. I just recently attended the 7th annual symposium hosted by the Center for Heir's Property here in Charleston, South Carolina. And there was a panel, there was a judge, a probate judge, I think is in Berkeley County here in South Carolina. And he told the stories of individuals that he experienced dealing with in the last, I'd say, year and a half, 2 years, even probably 2.5 years of his time as a probate judge, where he gave his insight in dealing with individuals in enforceable cases that tried to, they came into his office after a member of their family was deceased and making claims to be a son of or daughter of or some kind of family member of, to acquire their estate, basically lying. But it was kind of odd to learn that there is no requirement, there is nothing by law that individuals walking into the magistrate office or the probate office making claims to be a son of or daughter of or a spouse of an individual that's deceased to acquire their estate. So they don't have to provide any birth certificate, marriage license, any proof of that person being blood related to by marriage. Especially when there's no will. If there's no will Just like, if an individual owns an estate and they die without a will, their children inherit that property. Their descendants inherit that property, right? The same thing because it wasn't probated. So essentially, that's what's going on. That individuals are turning into criminals to steal from the estate, and it's not legal. It's not right. But in my experience dealing with heir property, I fought to protect it, and it was discovered that individuals, I said before, in other videos you've seen that, or have not seen, or talk about fraud and forgery. There's documentation to prove it. That's up at the deed office, in the clerk of court's office of the county. People entering into contracts for hunting rights and into contracts for selling the land or acquiring land or doing this, that, and third. But yet I was accused of committing fraud and forgery, that I submitted fraudulent documents to the court in the fight to preserve and protect the property, try to keep the land from being lost. And we're fortunate, unlike the Tolbert brothers and other members of the family that lost the land because of somebody did a quick claim deed to acquire land without even providing proof that they're entitled to that property. But there's individuals that have done it and got away with it until I stepped in and brought it before the court, brought it to light. And members of my family knew this before I did, and didn't take the action they needed to take. And they were sued, but they still didn't bring it before the court. They should have presented evidence to the court and saying, halted that lawsuit. How are you going to sue me when you, in fact, signed this document, which is fraudulent, or at least questionable to be whether or not it's legal or not? Let the court decide. But members of my family were sued for their transgressions, for the conspiracy of trying to take over the land, because they made it known that if you were heir to property, you need to come forward and provide proof. But people didn't want to play. People didn't want to cooperate, but yet they sued my family, my aunt, uncle, and cousins. So when I turned and sued them, it's an issue. Who he think he is? He's not an heir because his mom is still alive. Maybe so, but as the judge said, I still have an interest in the property. I still have an interest by way of my mother. So you can't deny her right. You can't deny the right from my mother, nor my grandmother. But now she's deceased, but when she was alive. So their testimony, their rights don't trump my family's rights, especially now that it's been identified that we're dual heirs. Well, at least the children and grandchildren of Jake and Hattie, my grandparents. So I don't care what nobody says. We have been identified as being heirs, living heirs and descendants of Washington James and Toby Cox. Right, wrong, or indifferent. And you can be mad all you want. I really don't care. Because everybody had opportunity. And those individuals that didn't want to contribute, didn't want to be part of it, that's on them. Now they're mad because I'm bringing to light the truth. Whether it's my truth, the truth, whoever's truth, it's documented. People got to come forward and prove it through marriage licenses, birth certificates, death certificates, obituaries, whatever the case may be. Playtime is over. In order to preserve and protect the property. And people have been living on this property all these years and have done nothing to make it better, have done nothing to preserve and protect the property. Thinking that because they live on it or because they family or they say that they are heirs, or that makes it okay. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make it okay. So as time goes on, more and more people will be laying claims, and as they said in the article, fractional ownership is going to dwindle down. It's going to, from that 25% to that 5% to that 1% to that 0.5%. What's that? No. I think that's it. That's all my thoughts on this article, but I think it was very fitting for me to review this article and give my thoughts on the matter. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Peace.